welcome to the next episode of my Learn With Me Hydrasynth series. This is episode 12, Mod Matrix Part 1. So first, what is this series? This is a series that follows my process end to end, learning to get the best out of a synthesizer. I've done it for the Op6 and now for the ASM Sound Machine's Hydrasynth Explorer. This is a digital synth with 8 voices, a relatively complicated but fundamentally subtractive synth engine with a lot of modulation sources and flexibility in sound design and some unique features by way of the mutants and some decent effects. On top of a poly aftertouch keyboard. What have we done so far? Well, I've talked about my general impressions of the synthesizer, we've listened to some presets, I've talked about the build quality, I've talked about the synth engine and the general architecture, then we've dived into a number of sections. The oscillators, the mutants, which are audio effects for the oscillators, the filters, the envelopes, the LFOs. Today we're going to talk about the part which connects all of those things together, the mod matrix. Now I have been using the mod matrix to demonstrate some of these other features, but first, what is a mod matrix? Mod matrix is a way of picking a modulation source and a modulation destination and specifying to what extent that signal is transmitted. So as an example, I can send envelope 1 to filter 1's cutoff frequency to animate it when I play a note. Sounds great. But when we look at filter 1, we discover that there's already a setting in there to specify the amount of envelope 1 that adjusts the cutoff of this filter. These are what you'd call normal routings, and these normal routings do not take mod matrix slots. They are independent, and you can use as many of them as you want or as are provided. The mod matrix is for routings outside of that, but you can replicate these routings. So I think that's a good example. So let's make an init patch. Let's look in the mod matrix, the first slot, and let's make that routing between envelope 1 and the filter. First, I'm going to do it directly using these controls, then I'm going to show you some shortcuts. Let's look at the number of sources available. We have 5 envelopes. We have 5 LFOs, those are bipolar routings, they go up and down from the initial point, and we have 5 unipolar routings, which will only go either up or down from where you set them. We have mono aftertouch, meaning there is only one channel of pressure for the entire keyboard. We have poly aftertouch, which is different pressure per key. Key tracking, which means the note that you play is a modulation source. The key down, the note on velocity, the note off velocity, the pitch wheel position, the mod wheel position. For the original Hydrasynth and the Hydrasynth Deluxe, there's a ribbon controller. You can specify that these modulations work absolutely, as in wherever you touch, there's an absolute value along the length of the ribbon. Either unipolar, meaning the whole thing is positive values, or bipolar, meaning the center is 0 and left and right are positive and negative. But as well as that, you have relative ribbon controls. So what that means is when you touch your finger down, that point is 0, and you can move down from there or you can move up from there. These are also controllable by MIDI, by the way, so you can use these sources and then control them from, say, a DAW or an external hardware controller. Expression pedal, sustain pedal, and then some MPE parameters, and then you can specify a MIDI CC as a source. All the way past those, nothing else there. So that's all of the sources that are available here. So you select the source that you want to work from. So let's scroll back through to envelope 1, the first one on the list. These buttons move up and down through the fields. So I press down and now I am in the destination field. So the destination, you're selecting a section, also known as module. So I want to pick the filter 1 module, go down. What parameter do I want to set? I want to set the cutoff parameter. And now this bottom knob, as soon as those 3 are set, the bottom one always controls the depth. So I'm going to set the depth to some negative value. Now from here, I can scroll to another page and that will save it as long as the top 3 fields are set, or I can hit exit. In either case, the top 3 fields must be set. Another useful control is, let me just assign something. If you hold down Shift and press this, it will clear the mod matrix slot. So sometimes if you made a modulation that doesn't make sense, you can clear it that way. So now you can probably hear that the filter doesn't sound like it's fully open anymore because this modulation is closing it. I can close it more, can hardly hear it now. Sounds rather boring. Why is it static? Well, it's static because envelope 1 is static. So let's add some attack, let's add some decay, let's add some release, and let's set some sustain. So hopefully you could hear that animation. Let me close the cutoff a bit and turn some resonance on. So notice that I'm moving this in the negative direction, but I think that illustrates setting up the routing. Now I'm going to go back and I'm going to set this up again using one of the shortcuts that you can use. So I can hold down Shift and clear that. When a sign is selected, I can just hit a section. I can move down, then I can hit the destination. So this has given me a pretty quick way of setting this. Another way is where there is a dedicated knob, you can actually turn that knob and it will set. So you see that says resonance now, that says filter 1 drive. If I pick filter 2 and turn it, now it's filter 2 morph. So that's another shortcut as well as just pressing that. And I could set the depth in exactly the same way. So that's another convenient way of doing it. The final convenient way of doing it, let me exit that, is to press the source and then press the destination. And the next available mod matrix slot will be made with that routing. Now, it won't specify which of the parameters within that module are set. You will still have to go through those, but that field is selected. So it becomes pretty quick and easy to go through them. Interesting that you can modulate the envelope amount and the LFO amount, as well as the key tracking amount of the filter. So all of the parameters are available. And for the majority of the modules, the majority of parameters are available. I've mentioned before for the LFO, the phase didn't seem to be available. Let me double check that that's actually true. Yes, there is only rate and level available for the LFO, so not all the LFO parameters are modulatable, but even just being able to modulate the rate and level is interesting because modulating the rate is modulating its frequency, so I can frequency modulate one LFO with another, and adjusting the level is amplitude modulation, so I can amplitude modulate one LFO with another. So that's the theory. Let's try some practice with this. So let me just delete this slot. And rather than using any of the normal routings, I will just make anything that I want in here with the exception of the routing of the amp envelope to envelope 2, which is not actually adjustable. So I can't make envelope 2 not adjust the VCA. There's a fixed 100% routing, because I guess if that weren't the case, you couldn't play keys. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to make a pad sound, and I'm just going to experiment by making a few modulation routings using a few envelopes and LFOs just to give us a feel for how this really works in practice. So I have this selected. Let's give us a 2-second attack, 5-second decay, a 3-second release, 50%. Another thing probably worth mentioning, which I didn't mention, is in the mod matrix, one of the destinations that you can pick is the mod matrix itself. So as an example, envelope 1, mod matrix. So this lets me set the modulation depth of any of the other modulations. This is additive, so that may or may not be what you want it to be, but that is what it is. So that's interesting, for example, because in the amplitude section, we can adjust the velocity's impact on the envelope. And you could do that by some combination of a static depth amount and a velocity component, which would be added together to form the modulation amount. But as I said, this is a normal routing. Let me add a little velocity sensitivity while I'm here. A bit more. Okay, so first thing I think I would like is to have some sort of small amplitude variation going on here. So amplitude variation would mean, let me use LFO2, let me beat sync it. So beat sync the LFO2, running at quarter notes sine, affecting the amplitude. So by default, it's showing me the LFO2 amount, but what I actually want to adjust is the level. So let me just try this, setting it high. So since this is a pulsing sound, I would probably like it to be synchronized across the voices. So I think what I'll do is set this to single. Sounds okay to me. I think it's a bit fast, so I'm going to set it to half notes. So again, this was a slot that was available here. I didn't actually have to use the mod matrix, but I think it's instructive to use it. Next, I'd like an envelope on the filter. I think I would like an envelope that is just falling. And let's say I'd like it to last about maybe 10 seconds. So I'm going to set the decay and the release to be equal. Although, with the sustain 0, what I'm actually going to do is I'm going to adjust the curves here. So the decay will be curvature, say 40, release will be curvature 50. So the release being a steeper curve means that the rate of descent is going to accelerate when we release the note, even though the length of the release is equal. So we get a slight curvature difference there. And this is going to apply to the cutoff positively. So let's set the cutoff to some minimum amount here. And now go to the mod matrix. And what do we want to do? We use the shortcut envelope 1 to the filter cutoff. And now I can set an amount here. So this I might have varying at a different rate. So this one is varying at half. So this one I'm going to beat sync again, but let's have it vary at a dotted quarter note. So that's varying at a different rate now. And I can have this apply to the filter cutoff. So again, LFO to filter cutoff. Now I can set an amount. Interesting. So another thing we might want to do is use one of the mutants. So I'm going to try the FM mutant, and let's just hear how it sounds. So what I'd like to do is I'd like to bring in another envelope to adjust this. So envelope 3 is going to adjust mutant 1, and it's going to adjust not the ratio, it's going to adjust the depth. So since this is maximum sustain, what I'm hearing is the maximum impact that it'll have. So this is 10 seconds long. Let's say I'm going to make this 5 seconds long. 6 is fine, I suppose. 6 seconds long. And let's say that it's going to have no sustain. And I'm going to do something similar to what I did before with respect to the shape. So let's try. So that's sounding interesting. I think this depth of modulation is maybe a bit deep, so let's try lower. It's all sounding pretty good. Now let's think about another motion that we might like here. Maybe we would like more noise to come in as the sound proceeds. So let's first pick a noise shape and volume. I'm going to set it to maximum. I like that brown noise, so let me... So I've set the noise volume to what I consider to be the minimum level that's of interest to me, and I'm going to modulate up from there. I've already used envelope 3, so let's go grab envelope 4. There are a number of ways I could do this. I think I'm going to just make a relatively long attack, full sustain. The decay becomes irrelevant here. The release, I'm going to make it long, so as you hopefully won't hear it releasing. The attack slope, I think we don't really want it logarithmic. We want to be able to hear it proceed a little bit more linearly. So let's do something like that. This is envelope 4. And yeah, I think that works. So we'd like that to adjust the mixer. So envelope 4 to the mixer. And what would I like to set? I'd like to set the noise level. I'd like to set it positively. Okay, so let's add some effects. Let's play it for a moment and then see. Sounded good. Let's try reverse delay. I don't normally use them. 2 seconds is a bit long. So a reverse delay is like a normal delay, but the buffer plays back in the opposite direction to the direction that is written, so the sound comes out backwards. Reverb, I feel like this could do with some significant reverb. So let's go for this plate, and let's set it fairly long. Let's set it very bright. Even longer. Post effect. Maybe an EQ, let me just see how it sounds. Okay, so nothing particularly interesting, but I think it illustrated how quick and easy it is to set up these mod matrix routines. I'm only using 5 of them here, but I have 30 of them available to me. That's not to mention the macros, each of which have 8 destinations independent of the mod matrix, and there are 8 of them, and you can modulate them from the mod matrix. So you have quite a lot of scope of what's available here with respect to sources and destinations. Let's play this for a little bit, and then let's say goodbye. So I'd say quite an unusual sound with not very much effort. I'm sure you can imagine that if I was looking to refine this, and I was experimenting not just using sine wave LFOs, but a range of LFOs, the possibilities with looping envelopes, and all the other features that we have available, there is a lot of potential for complex sound design. In any case, I hope you've been enjoying this series. I hope you enjoyed this episode and you'll join me for some more. But in any case, and most importantly, I'd like to say thank you very much for joining me, and goodbye.